Hey everybody, good to see you good to have you with us today here at Protestant Spotlight. We're going to share some things about the Antichrist, Antiochus Epiphanes from way back, and Daniel chapter 11. Doc, exciting days, and
Yes, they are.
it just seems like when we read our Bible, we're reading out of the newspaper.
That's right.
Not that anybody reads newspapers anymore, but YouTube videos, news reports going on.
Right. I preach a message that the Bible is not old or out of date, but it's ahead of its time.
It is, and man, so in my Daniel study guide, we've been going through the book of Daniel in our TV program, and which is also here on YouTube. We're starting chapter 11 today. As a matter of fact, we're going to record that today, and that's where this guy is at, this Epiphanes. I think I mentioned him somewhere else, but mainly chapter 11
8,
here.
I think touched on him.
Yeah, might have been in chapter 8 a little bit. And but there's something interesting in here, and this is not in the study guide, but I did write some notes in mine, that I believe there's a dual prophecy here. And I want to go back to Isaiah chapter 44. And any of you folks that are on YouTube, you can go to my live videos, Crossing Spotlight Live, and just click the live button up above there. And you'll have to scroll down a ways. You'll find there's 3 or 4 of them. Trump as King Cyrus, I think, is the title of them, something like that. There's 1, 2, 3, maybe there may be a 4. I'm not sure. There isn't right now, but I think there may be by the time you folks listen to this. And I brought out some interesting things about Donald Trump. Of course, my wife and I were in Israel in 2017. Trump had already been in office for 6 months or so. They already had banners up of Trump and Cyrus, and King Cyrus and Trump. So people may be wondering, well, who's this King Cyrus guy? Well, he happens to be the Persian king that we see in Daniel, who is the second kingdom that takes, after 70 years of captivity, Persia, the Medes and the Persians, they come through the drainage. They actually redirected the river.
Yes, they did.
So that the drainage system would empty out.
They could go
and
underneath.
They walked through it.
They could go underneath the gates that were down in the river.
Yeah. Pretty good tactical maneuver.
And they had to know that they were doing all of that, yet Belshazzar, he still thinks he's something.
And of course, he's sitting up there, he's drinking wine out of the vessels from the temple, mocking God. Nebuchadnezzar didn't do that, but his grandson did, Belshazzar. And he's sitting there thinking how great he is. Yeah. And suddenly he sees a hand, and that's the handwriting on the wall. And of course, Daniel's going to interpret that for him.
That's when the Persians take over, and
and I think maybe even while Daniel is interpreting, actually I think it's the next day.
It was in that night.
And they come, and the kingdom is taken by the Persians, Medes and the Persians. That's who Cyrus is. You had Darius and Cyrus, those two at the beginning.
Darius the Mede.
Yep, and Cyrus and Cyrus has an affection for the Jews. Now we don't know why. Be interesting to do some research, see if there's anything out there where the connection is, why he was so friendly to them.
But God in his foreknowledge knew that because he had even spoken of it 100 so years
And that's
before.
where we're going to go here. In Isaiah chapter 44, the last verse in the chapter, verse 28, thus saith, that saith of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and he shall perform all my pleasure. Even saying to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built, and to the temple thy foundation shall be laid. Now we'll continue some more.
And when Isaiah's writing that, the temple in Jerusalem's still standing.
It is. Yeah, because this is somewhere around 700 BC.
That's why they made so much fun of him in light of Isaiah.
Somewhere around 700 BC, Isaiah recorded this, and he mentions a man that's not born yet.
Right.
In fact, it's going to be 175 years before Cyrus becomes the head of the world there, so to speak, takes over the kingdom from Babylon. 175 years later. So that's interesting that he's mentioned by name here, and he's not even born yet. that just proves another proof of the Bible being
And
true.
of the omniscience of our God.
Yeah, that only God could do this.
Right.
And notice what it says here about Cyrus. He's my shepherd, God says. He's in my hand. He's my shepherd to do my will. He's going to perform all my pleasure.
Yep.
He's going to say to Jerusalem, thou shalt be built. In other words, he's the one that's going to tell Israel, I want you to go back to your homeland.
Go back and rebuild. Yes.
In fact, he supplies money, grant money,
He gives them the letters so that they can go through the places where they need to gather the material to be able to do the job.
What a friend, huh?
Yeah, what a great friend.
And but then it goes on and it says, and to the temple, comma, thy foundation shall be laid.
Right.
And as we know, King Cyrus is going to encourage them to rebuild the temple, which they do. And you see that. Of course, the wall, that comes later.
We can look back into history and see all those phases of how that came about.
So this explains why Israel, when they think of Donald Trump, they think of their King Cyrus
They see back into their history.
Cyrus is an important historical figure.
Absolutely.
If you're a Jew. I mean, he was for them, and he helped them get back in their land. And they were not sovereign. They had the temple, and they're going to have walls eventually.
Well, they've never been actually sovereign. They think they are even now, but they've never been actually sovereign since Nebuchadnezzar.
They're dependent upon outside help, mainly from us. If it wasn't for us...
In today's world.
There'd be no Israel. But we finance them, we help them protection.
And it was Trump that moved the embassy back into Jerusalem.
Yeah. By the way,
it was Trump that said the Golan Heights are yours.
When Donald Trump was elected, November 2016, he becomes the president January 20th, 2017. I believe it was November or December that same year, when he moved the embassy to Jerusalem.
And it's in his first year.
Yeah.
Which is
right here. Cyrus is in his first year of his reign when he did it.
He showed favor on him.
So Trump did the same thing.
Yes.
And I doubt that Trump really even understands who Cyrus is or what all this means.
Well, I'm sure he does by now.
Yeah.
But at the time,
they made coins. You and I have one with Trump Cyrus on it.
Right.
And so I think that it's interesting. I think it's possible that what I just read in Isaiah chapter 44, and the reason I mentioned Daniel chapter 11 is I think this Antiochus Epiphanes, there's no doubt that's a dual prophecy.
Yeah. Well, we know that.
Yeah.
Because the last 5 verses of chapter 11 makes that very clear.
Yeah. He's definitely not talking about this guy. He's talking about the one to come, the Antichrist.
Right, the Antichrist.
So that's a dual prophecy. This one here is not so, you can't be so dogmatic because it don't come out and say, but yet everything that in this passage, including what I'm going to read next, is things that Donald Trump is involved in.
He's helping set up the stage that has to do with the temple and things of the tribulation.
And I have already gone on record that I believe that we're going to see Donald Trump come out with a statement or something, or maybe even provide some help. I believe he's going to suggest that they build their temple.
I won't be surprised if that happens, because look at what he's trying to do on the world stage concerning Gaza and what's going on right now.
You know, there's a couple things about Mr. Trump that are interesting. On January 20th, 2017, when he took office the first time, he was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, which is, I mean, just a coincidence.
Just a coincidence, 777,
yeah. He was involved in what we call the Abraham Accords, which is very interesting. The coin and the signs in Israel, Trump Cyrus, moving the capital in the first year of his reign, just like Cyrus did in the first year of his reign. Let's see, Cyrus ruled the Persian Empire and gave the Jews their temple. And Trump very possibly will do the same thing.
At least he's certainly showing the kind of favoritism toward Israel that would lend to that.
Now, back here in 2 Chronicles, Doc, chapter 36, verse 22. This is Cyrus. Verse 22. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and put it also in writing, saying, and then he goes on, I liken that to Mr. Trump's executive orders, putting something in writing concerning these things. In the book of Ezra, chapter 3, we have Cyrus again here. In verse 7, I believe it is, they gave money also unto the masons, and this is the building of the temple here in Ezra, under Ezra's, and to the carpenters, and meat and drink and oil unto them of Zidon, and to them of Tyre, to bring cedar trees from Lebanon to the Sea of Joppa, according to the grant, so there's money here, that they had of Cyrus, king of Persia. Yeah. So it's very interesting that Trump is following down the same line. Now let's finish up with a couple verse chapter 45 here. I'm still in Isaiah. We just read verse 28 of chapter 44. Then it becomes chapter 45, verse 1. But, you know, in the Bible, them chapter titles are added there. But so in other words, he continues, thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus. He's talking about Cyrus. Right. Cyrus is anointed. And on my YouTube channel, I help people understand. That's not some spooky thing. Don't think this is some kind of. This is simply God putting His hand or pointing to somebody, say, I'm calling you to do this. I'm anointing you for this purpose in life. Cyrus had that, and I believe that Trump has that. I believe God spared this man's life. I believe that the bullet that just missed him with the turning of his head and his right hand. Look what it says here. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden. It was his right ear, by the way, and he turns his head, and it's like he's looking at the screen over there. Whose right hand I have holden to subdue nations. Before him, Trump is subduing nations. Yes. We're going to have Canada's going to be a part of America. I'm convinced it's going to be.
It may,
and possibly Mexico too. And
that may be a part of the 10 kings.
Yeah. And I will loose the loins of kings to open before him the two-leaved gates. And I think that's talking about Jerusalem there. And the gates shall not be shut. I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. And you folks, you can read this on your own here. But this is amazing. When you read this,
parallels.
It sounds like we're talking about Donald Trump, right? And he this could be a dual prophecy. I predict that we're going to hear something about that temple during his term, and maybe sooner than we realize.
Well, you're hearing rumblings of it.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
So they've got the red heifers and all that. And
they're at the age where this is going to take place.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, we're just about out of time here. The Daniel Study Guide is on the website. You can go and check that out. The announcer will give you that information how to get there at the end. And we hope that you're ready to meet the Lord, because we are on the last lap. We're on the final lap. We're at the very end of the end times. It's just a matter. It could be weeks. It could be days. It could be hours. The rapture could happen tonight.
Amen.
Or it could be a few years down the road. Either way, we're on the edge of it. I hope you're ready to meet him. Well, until next time, keep your eyes on them skies.